to talk to us. I heartily welcome Dr. Gurunathan Dhanapal, Vice President, Strategic Procurement Services, HSBC India, on the role of ethics and sustainable supply chain. And Mr. Ieihlc, Supplier Quality Analyst, Caterpillar India Limited, Hosur, on the recent trends in engineering and technology. Gentlemen, it is a real pleasure having both of you here to talk to us on this Engineer Celebration Day. Before I hand over to you. Now, the topic is sustainable development of the nation. So if our nation is to continuously develop, we have reached a stage of development which is definitely much better than what it used to be. Compared to many other countries, far, far ahead. Compared to many other countries, still much below the poverty line. And with a burgeoning population of 140 crores, it is no mean feat that the country can keep growing. So here is where the engineer comes into the play. Without engineering solutions, none of these things are going to happen. So what we take away from this meeting will be to see how in every single work we do, every single developmental activity we carry out, how do we assess the performance, how do we assess the result, and if it is matching with the expectation, then how do we sustain it? So with this in the background, let us listen to Dr. Gurunathan. Over to you, Dr. Gurunathan.
So thank you for this opportunity. So first of all, a warm welcome to everyone for this session and good afternoon to all.
Excuse me,
and
sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Just a minute, sir. A short introduction will be given over you. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to welcome today's speaker, Dr. Gurunathan Dhanapal, Vice President, Strategic Procurement Services, HSBC India, Vice President, Strategic Sourcing and Procurement Services, GSC, HSBC, Global Sourcing Manager, Verizon, Domain Delivery Manager at Infosys, Deputy Manager at L&T, Regional Lead at Etisalat. He has played various roles in his career. He obtained many certifications. I'm glad to welcome Dr. Gurunathan Dhanapal to deliver lecture on the role of ethics and sustainable supply chain management.
Yes, sir. Session is over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Karthik, and good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I just want to take this time and opportunity to thank entire people whoever is part of this initiative. So let me introduce myself as a Gurunathan Dhanapal. So I'm basically an industrial expert in supply chain, specialized into a strategic sourcing and procurement part. And today I'm here to talk about one of the good topics of the role of ethics and sustainable in the supply chain. So let me show my PPT to you. So please ask me any questions if you have about it, but I just want to provide some basic terms about the supply chain and before I start this particular session. Can you please let me know, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So today we're just going to see about the 5 broad subcategories, which is called as the supply chain risk, how the supply chain is basically managing the integrated supply chain, how they're building the supply base, logistics, and then the distribution management. Supply chain management is all about, it's a process of combined stages directly or indirectly in fulfilling the customer needs. And especially right when the product is moving from a supplier to manufacturer to distributor, distributor to retailer, and retailer to the customers. And there is another 2 pillars called as a logistics and transportations, and these are the common pillar and fulfilling the customer needs. For example, if you want to buy a mobile phone, okay, for an example, and the mobile is basically did not come just like that, because none of the OEMs doesn't manufacture the end-to-end products, which means they have to be work with various suppliers for one particular mobile phone. They have to work with at least 50 to 100 suppliers to procure the raw materials, and then move it to a production, and then it started to happen via the distribution, and then it goes to the consumers. So we talks about the 7 stages in the supply chain, which is supplier to manufacturer, manufacturer to distributor, distributor to retailer, and retailer to a customers. And transportations and warehouse is a very intricate part. Every stages, for example, if materials moves from a supplier to a manufacturer, we require a transportation, and then the warehouses. We have a different kind of transportations like roadways, railways, airways, seaways, sometimes pipelines. Like for example, your 5G, 4G, right? It's always happens through the pipeline. So supply chain is basically, it's a very vast areas. It basically has a lot of risk, and supply chain is the function which is basically optimize the solutions and brings a lot of savings to the organizations to fulfill the customer needs. So we are basically going to touch upon the ethics and sustainable, how it's basically going to be work around it. So supply chain, right? As I discussed, I'm just going to take one of the case study of Danson supply chain, which is already in the public domain, and it is one of the very largest publicly traded casual dining company in the world, which serves almost 400 million plus annually, and more than around 2,000 plus restaurants in US and Canada, and their annual sales of flagship totaling around 6 billion and above. And operations is basically is a strategy for them, how they source the food from 5 continents, and then thousands of suppliers. For having a restaurant in 1,900 locations, or 1,900 restaurants in US and Canada, it is not so easy for them, but they try to source a lot of foods from different regions, continents, and with multiple suppliers in place. As I told you that if you want to buy one particular mobile, we need at least 50 plus supplies to procuring the raw material to customize the process. But think about the food industries, which is basically as how they are basically spreaded in terms of to buying products from different location into it. Think about that, if Pizza Hut or maybe the Sarvana Bhavan is having a restaurant in Tamil Nadu, right? So they have to be source raw materials like oil, food items, vegetable, fruits, groceries from a different kind of source of supplies within the local to local. So in the supply chain, a competitive advantage is always achieved through the superior supply chain. That is one of the very best in class for supply chain organization. The objective of the supply chain management is to coordinate activities within the supply chain to maximize the supply chain competitive advantage, and then benefits to the ultimate consumer. So what do you mean by the supply chain management? Supply chain management is a people, all right? So they are basically has a various stages. They are basically strategic sourcing people, procurement, inventory, warehouse, compliance management, and then transport. There is a lot of people who get involved into the supply chain activities, and they need to coordinate from each and every stages, like moving from the stage from supplier to manufacturer, manufacturer to a distributor, distributor to retailer, retailer to a customer. It requires a lot of coordinations and bonding, and if there is an communication gap which is happening between any one of the stage, the supply chain will collapse. For example, if manufacturer is not providing much information to a distributor and the products goes directly to the customers, right? If customers doesn't know how to operate that particular product or how to use this particular product, then it becomes a lot of issues. So supply chain management, it's basically is playing a very crucial role in the market, and they are basically is trying to work on the lot of strategies based on the different industries and different organization. The supply chain strategy, what I was talking here is, it is not the same for every company follows. For example, bankers basically has a different strategy. Telecom industry operate around a different strategy. IT has different. Energies has different. Retail industry has different. Hospitality has a different. But if you see about the framework, it will be the same, but each and every industry, each and every organization, for example, within the same industry, a telecom, like AT&T vs Airtel, or maybe Airtel vs Vodafone, right? Their strategy itself is entirely different, and how they are basically coordinating all all the raw materials when the raw materials move into a form of finished goods, or the semi-finished product to our customers. So there is no rule that the companies basically is always provide only a full finished product to our customers. Sometimes they also provide a semi-finished products, and then it has to be synchronized with the other product to make to fulfill it. For example, Intel processor, right? It cannot work just like that. It requires some kind of configurations, a laptop accessories, and it has to be right sync, or it has to be work with some other product to fulfill the customer needs. So this particular stages, as I told you, that it involves a lot of facts like a supplier role, manufacturer role, distributor role, customer role, retailer role, warehouse team, wholesalers, right? And customers also, there is a two type of customers. One is a customer, and then customers of customers. Customers means, for example, if I can able to buy a mobile phone for my son, I am paying the money at the showroom, right? And then get that particular product. So I become a customer, but I'm not going to use this particular product. I'm going to be give it to my son. So who is going to become the end user, and which is will be consuming this particular product. So there is a lot of stages in the supply chain, and which we basically is coordinate in a very different way. Large portion of sales dollars spent on purchases every time, right? When every company is spent on supply chain, there is a huge money which they are basically playing into it. Even if you take about AT&T, and AT&T's annual spend is more than a $30 billion dollar, right? When they try to provide a technology solution to the key customers. So they need to be work in a very agile, innovation, speed design, and reduce cost, because year on year customers always expect the low cost without compromising on the high quality. So how the high quality is always comes because of sourcing the right products, and how the company is basically is managing the supplier relationship effectively, and going up with the innovative products year on year, and upgrade the technologies time to time, and that's matters. And this is how the supply chain is basically is always takes such a different role. If you see about industry wise supply chain cost, I given the very approximate figures. This is not an actual figure. This is more about some of the generic uh, details, right? How the purchases happens with automobiles, beverages, chemicals, food, lumber, metals, paper, petroleum, restaurants, and transportation costs. So supply chain cost is very important factor, and that is the reason the supply chain organization is basically having the accountability of controlling the end-to-end cost in the supply chain for manufacturing any of the products. For example, in the Harley furniture, 60% of the sales in supply chain, the current gross profit is basically is almost $10,000, but increased profit is basically is 15%, whereas 50% is going to be the profit for some of the organization. But if you think about the food industry is coming up with a profit of around 30 to 40% on a daily basis, right? They need to invest the money, and they have to take out the take the product, take the profit out. Every industries operate with the different margins. It depends upon the depends upon the industry trends, right? And how much of profits they are basically making it, and under that particular product, what is going to be a sales, what is going to be the cost of materials, what is going to be a production cost, or what is going to be the fixed, what is going to be the other expenses and plus profits. So there is a no rule that every company makes a good profit, but there is some of the cases and where some of the company make less profit, or sometimes they go in a loss to meet the customer needs as well. So there is a lot of time, right, where company is taking a different strategy to rebuild or to rebrand the company to increase the revenues, right? You would have been seen in papers and all, like a Facebook and Twitter, right? There is a lot of layoff. So that layoff is not it doesn't have an intention to reduce the workforce, or maybe the firing the employees, which is all about strategy to save the money to the organizations in a very different way. So for you to understand, right, I'm just showing the simple supply chain uh, factors, right, how it is going to be applied for a beer company. If you see about it and how that they are basically as procuring, see, for manufacturing a beer, right, liquor, and then the bottle can manufacturing hops and grinds, we have to procure from lot of way, tier 1 supplier, tier 2, tier 3, right? So there is a different kind of supplier categories where companies basically trying to focus, and where sometimes they have to acquire directly from the farmers, right, for the raw materials, and then the raw materials will move into a different stages. Like for example, if you see about grains, they acquire directly from the farmers, and then they basically go directly to the manufacturing process, and where the manufacturing is goes on. Second factor is called that they need to also store that particular beverage, where they require a lot of cans and bottles. So there also need to be work with different suppliers to procure these kind of items, and then it goes to a distributors, and then it goes to the grocery stores. Like for example, think about Coca-Cola, right? And then it's Coca-Cola is basically as work with different companies and acquiring. It goes to the distributors, who's basically having the license to sell the product in India, and then it goes to Big Bazaar, and then it goes to the customer, right? So this is a whole supply chain. So the product, it is just like a very simplification of the visuals, what you are basically seeing through it. But actually, right, if you see about it, it has a more complexity, because it requires a lot of steps, right, in terms of to fulfill the customers. Are you good with this, or do you need a more examples to move on? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So if you see about the supply chain management, right? So how corporate is basically formulate the strategies which impacts the supply chain decisions. It has a various factors, right? Low cost strategy, response strategy, and differentiation strategy. And each and every industries and every company has a different kind of components. So different kind of names, right, in terms of to formalize to it. So if you see about this particular table, which is clearly explains about it, what is the primary supplier selections criteria, right? Whether it can be a cost, or it can be a capacity, speed, and flexibility, or it can be a skill set of the supplier, or maybe the product development skills, or it may be a particular supplier maybe offers a very unique technology. So every company is basically has a different factors, right? Low cost strategy, it's not only applies for all the companies, but some of the company cost doesn't matter, but quality is basically matters a lot when they try to fulfill to the customers. So supply chain inventories, there is lot of debates all around it, whether it can be do it, or it can be minimize it, or we should have a maximum inventory, right? We call it as a push pull strategy, right? And where we once we receive from the order from the customer only that inventory, we try to procure that inventory, and then it goes for a productions. So supply chain inventories, it's a very important factors for organizations to spend more time and more strategy and strong leadership in terms of to run that particular operations, because it has a lot of money and to work on. Distribution networks and product designs, it's obviously is matters, because it's more about the customer attractions, or customers is basically is always try to buy the products based on the availability, nearby availability, and then the product design. For example, if I need to buy an Apple phone, right, I need to ensure that where I go and buy it, right? By sitting in Bangalore, I cannot travel to Hyderabad and buy it. So the particular product should be available within the doorsteps, and it should be very easy access for customer to get it. There is a lot of issues where companies basically will undergo. It is depends upon the industry to industries and company to company. Like for example, they have a make or buy. Okay, sometimes I need to see about whether I want to go and buy all the raw materials, or I need to go and manufacture to it. For example, Dell is a very good example. Dell as a company and doesn't manufacture any of the chips. Whatever, for example, if you're using a Dell laptops, Dell strategy, the Michael Dell strategy is that to go to the market and procure the raw materials as in conditions and comes and assemble that particular product and brand as a Dell and sell it to the customers, right? Whatever the product which is available in the market. So they are basically chosen to buy the components from the market and assemble and then push that particular product as a full product to the customers. Some of the cases they go for a think about electronic chips company, right? Medicine, a pharma company, they cannot go to outsource any of the medicines, but they used to procure the raw materials, molecules which is required to prepare the medicines from the market. Every company is trying to see that how they want to do it. Think about a marriage function, right? If you want to make a laddu, right? If you want to make a 50 laddus, that's fine, and you can go for a make at your house to do it. But if you want to cater it for 1,000 to 2,000 people, right, you have to go for a outsourcing, and you need to also think about a timing. For example, think about that if my salary, right, per hour salary is around 100 rupees, right? If I'm going to be spend 10 hours on that particular activity, right, it's going to be 1,000 rupees. But if I'm going to be look out for a cheaper resources where the 1 hour salary or wages is going to be just 10 rupees, right? I can able to outsource that particular low end activities to a people, and then I can save my activities. So most of the company, they try to spend their time only into the strategies. So most of the operationals matters, they try to outsource to a third parties, right? So outsourcing is basically it's very efficient way of managing the cost for the organizations, and where it basically brings a lot of core competencies and replica the company same standards, and ensure that they basically provides a low cost. The one of the reason and why we get a cheaper employer rate, right? Why a lot of US companies and Europe companies is looking for and resources in India. The number one is knowledge, the strong skill set of the resources. Number two is cheaper pricing, right? So if I think about it, if I need to be higher one HR manager, right? So I need to pay around 1 crore in US or maybe in Europe, but in India, right, I can able to get it done for a 10 lakhs or maybe a 20 lakhs as a CTC. So lot of companies, global companies, trying to see they might be also having the capability center in India, or maybe in Thailand, or maybe Taiwan, or maybe countries like China, right? They try to go for a low productions and trying to bring lot of value, right? You would have been seen in your mobile, made in China, made in Korea, right? Made in India. So that particular companies may be operated out of US. So the main reason is they try to see the internal activities are outsourced to a third parties to bring a lot of saving opportunities to work on. So generally, right, in industry, we will be work on a different sourcing strategies, especially, right, whatever you are seeing in this particular deck, many suppliers, few suppliers, vertical integration, joint ventures, Keiretsu networks or virtual companies. Let me take one example about the top three, right? Many suppliers, for example, if I need to um, look out for an furnitures, right, at office. So obviously, right, I need to see that which suppliers are in the market. For example, if I want to buy a chair, right, I need to look out for Monarch, Hayworth, and then a Steelcase, Godrej, right? I need to see that which product is suiting for the employee need, and how the product is going to be benefits, and what is the cost the company is basically is going to bring it to our organization. So every time when we buy something, right, we'll also look out for multiple options to ensure that the cost is competitive, and we also have a very healthy relationship with the suppliers to get the best for our customers. So every company has a different kind of strategy, right? They play with single suppliers, for example, like a managed service provider. Think about that. tomorrow if Infosys is want to work on contractors, right? If they don't want to go for a full-time employees, what they do is that they will bring lot of MSP as a program, one particular company, and they will try to onboard 100,000 or 5,000 employees under them, right? Instead of going it with multiple suppliers, they bring only one suppliers to tag all the contracting under them. So every company is basically has a very different sourcing strategies altogether, but sometimes they try to work only with few suppliers. Like for example, Intel, right? Every name the company you talks about, Lenovo, Dell, Toshiba, right? HP, they will work only with Intel core, right? That is what every people are required to it, and also they need to load the Microsoft. So we have only we don't have multiple suppliers in place. It is going to be a monopoly. So we need to take a stand that where we are going to be get a cheaper costs, but without compromising on a technology or maybe a solution. Commonly, right, we have a different kind of commodities. Commodity means different kind of products. Like for example, electronic is a commodity, right? And then copper is a commodity, cement is a commodity, right? Electronics is going to be a commodity, HR is going to be a commodity, marketing is going to be a commodity. So every time when we see about it, there is a different kind of commodities what we purchase. Purchase is not only typically based on the pricing, but it has a lot of external other factors like a quality, right price, right time, and then right locations, and then we also try to see how we customize to it. We always talks about a different kind of rates, right? First one is right quantity. Are we buying on a right quantity? Are we buying on a right quality, right price, right time, right location, and then how we going to customize the product to a customer to customers. So supplier is basically is responsible for technology expertise, forecasting, cost, quality, and then delivery. So supplier's role is to provide the material on the doorsteps. They follow a different kind of Incoterms in the market based on the customers expectations and then the need. The suppliers basically will take it forward to fulfill the customer needs. Suppliers is basically is always compete one on one, brings a new technologies, innovations, different kind of solutions to the customers. Buyers is basically is always forms. I just want to provide more clarity about who's buyer, who's supplier. Buyer means the one who buys the product, right? Think about that. If you go to a showroom, you want to buy a mobile, you're a buyer. Like Purvika or Priyadashini, right? Or maybe Chroma, right? Whoever they are selling it, they are basically is called as a supplier, or sometimes they also referred as a vendor. Okay, so supplier is basically why we use a terminology called supplier, the one who's add value to us, right? Vendor word, right, doesn't add value, right? For example, if you go with vegetable vendor, right? So it's going to be a one time off, but that is a very small cost, small money, right? So they are basically named as vendor. So you need to be understand that the clear terminology of what is buyer and what is basically seller, and also right, the supplier responsibility is that to create value through economic of sales and learning curve improvements, right? So the suppliers is basically is always more willing to participate in just in time programs and contribute to designs and technology. If you see about Apple iPhone, right, why we get a different kind of versions, right? If think about, if Apple is going to be put the same model for 3-5 years, right, they will be out of the market. The reason Nokia failure, right, was is basically is not up to date with the technology, right, in the market. So suppliers try to do the self investigations, go through a self through process. They will basically have the R&D, the research and developments, and where they try to work on a different aspects of in building the internal designs and technology expertise. And cost is also a same. Cost is also changing from supplier perspective. Sometimes the cost will go less on year. Sometimes the cost will go up year on year, subject to the availability of the commodity in the market, the commodity of the products in the market, right? If you have a huge surplus, and definitely we'll get a very good discounts and where we can buy those products. But if the particular product it is not available, right, we basically have a lot of shortages, and that will lead to the huge pricings. Like for example, semiconductor industry, right, it's undergoing a lot of shortages. Paper industry is undergoing a lot of shortages. So trade secrets and other alliances are very important, how they do the work on. The next one is basically is called as the vertical integration. The vertical integration is basically is all about uh, all is it's all about that how the factor is basically is working around. So I've given some kind of example to you, right? How the transformation is going to be happen. Like for example, Pepsi, right? The forward integration is more about the bottling, right? Bottling, the sourcing of bottling. Apple is basically the forward is more about the retail store, but backward integration is about the chip makers, the component makers for the mobile phone. International paper, I gave an example about the paper cost is going up. If you see about the forward integrations about end user, like consumer, a customer who buys the product and how they're using to it. But on the back end, on the back integrations, right, I need to also ensure that we basically have the enough pulp as a raw materials in our warehouse or maybe in the productions to produce the goods. But that might ultimately impact the tree harvesting as well. So one side we are talking about a go green, on the other side we cut the trees and make the pulp, and then we go and manufacture the paper, and that paper is basically using it in the industry. So I think everybody is now talking about the digitization. The reason here is we basically just wanted to save the energy, save the environment, and want to go green, and that is one of the agenda, right? Why we want to go for a less paper. So every company has a different kind of integration, horizontal integrations and vertical integrations, but everything is trying to fulfill to the raw materials to the finished goods, which means supplies to a manufacturer, manufacturer to distributor, distributor to retailer, and retailer to customers, and customers to a customers of customers, which is likely to call as end user. So developing the ability, it's one of the very main part for vertical integration to produce goods or services which is previously purchased. They also try to improve the cost, quality, and then excess inventory, but it also impacts the capex and opex, capital expenses and operational expenses, and then managerial skills and demands. So integrations is always lead to forward, or sometimes backwards, or towards to suppliers, or towards to the customers. So the integration may be built in based on the output, right? Whatever the relevant output is going to be decided. It's also very risky in industries with rapid technology, because there's a lot of risk. Supply chain industry itself risk, like for example, threat like COVID is one of the risk which had an global impact in the supply chain industries, where there's a lot of products was shortage. They could not able to fulfill it. There's a lot of things which has happens. Think about a tsunami, think about a fire, think about the weather inclinations, think about a war, right? There is a lot of external roadblocks which is basically always there in the industry, and which is basically always have a lot of challenges when it's basically is come in the market. Joint ventures, it is very simple why supply chain organizations are going it, but it need to enhance the skills, secure supply, and then reduce the cost. And also sometimes, right, the two brands is coming together and fulfilling, it has a lot of impact from the customer point of view. So it is basically is it is the idea is not about the diluting the brand. It's basically is more about how I'm going to be competitive advantage. Like Maruti Suzuki is a great example, right? So how they come together to fulfill to it. There is a lot of times where companies try to acquire the another company like Vodafone and Idea, right? Acquisitions which has happens. There's a lot of banks which got merged together, right? It's all about that how they can extend the capacities in a large way to fulfill the customers. So I'm going to be go directly to the supply chain risk. The supply chain risk is uh, more debatable topic across the world. It has a lot of risk. For example, reputational risk, legal risk, financial risk, cyber risk, credit card risk. There is a lot of risk, especially 20 types of risk is there across global. So every organization, when they try to onboard a supplier, so they always try to review or they try to screen the different kind of risk types when they try to onboard the suppliers to the organization, because vendor capability, reliability is basically is very important. And also we need to see what are all the other factors. Like every company, they try to do the pestle analysis. What do you mean by the pestle? It's all about the political risk, environmental risk, socio-cultural risk, technology risk, economical risk, legal risk. So they try to assess the different kind of risk for the industries and also for the customers to try how they can able to protect the company out of the risk to fulfill the product to the customers. So there is a lot of risk and mitigation in place. They try to use a different kind of factors. They might be having the corporate governance call. They always go for innovative planning, reduce potential disruptions. Potential disruptions means they try to avoid different kind of factors, right? Like for example, during rains, heavy cyclones, they will not move the product. So they take a different kind of mitigation tactical strategy to move the product from the one location to the another location. So this is where the strategic sourcing role plays, and they try to help. Strategic sourcing is an institutional process, right, that continuously evaluates the purchasing activity of an organization to ensure that they deliver value to the consumers. So they also try to be very flexible and put diversified supplier base to mitigate the risk. Diversified supplier is more about, right, a lot of companies has an agenda to increase or to bring 10% diversity supplier. Diversity supplier means is a women owned organization or army veterans or the company's motive is to serve people, right? There's a lot of aspects we qualify as a uh, diversity. For example, if any of the LGBT people start up the entity, right? So that is also considered to be a diversified a diversity supply. But diversified is more about that how I procure the product from a different countries. I should not be only depend upon the one country. Think about that. If I'm going to be depend upon only a US, like tomorrow, if I'm going to be have some challenges with them, right? I need to really look out for an the source of product from Russia. So you need to be ready, right, in terms of to have a diversified business, diversified supplier to procure a products, to go for a manufacturing and fulfill the customer needs. This is a very high level of risk and mitigations. One of the risk, supplier failure to deliver, right? What of the risk tactics here is use multiple suppliers, effective contract in place, right? Contract is basically is a legally document signed between two or more parties which is enforceable by law, right? If the document is not enforceable by law, it doesn't called as a contract. So they try to see that how they basically use suppliers in terms of to fulfill it. And a lot of times, right, we try to use the subcontractors as well in the business. Example, McDonald planned its supply chain 6 years before its opening in Russia. So every plant, bakery, where they have to keep the plant, and where the bakery has to be set up, and where they have to source from meat, where they have to source from chicken, where they have to be buy the groceries. So they have basically has had a 6 years plan, and before they come into the market, they put lot of multi suppliers contract. They selected different way, right, to operating around local to local supplier strategy in terms of to fulfill to it. Number two is supplier quality failure, right? Why the quality failure has happened? What is the tactics you have to bring it? Careful supplier selection. You have to select the right supplier, right? You can able to buy pen for 1 rupee. You can buy a pen for 100 rupees. You can buy a pen for 10,000 rupees, right? You really need to see that what is the risk associated with it for a pen. But think about if I'm going to be buy a medicine, right, which is going to be available for 1 rupee, which is going to be available for 100 rupees, which is going to be available for 1,000 rupees. For a pen, I can able to take a risk for buying any kind of category. For a medicines, I cannot, right? The risk is basically is always requires on the trust of the brand, training, certifications, and monitoring. A Darden restaurant has placed extensive controls, including a third-party audits on supplier process and logistics to ensure constant monitoring and then reduction of risk. This is not only a Darden restaurant. Restaurant is a food industry. Think about that. If I'm going to the restaurant and having a food and the particular meat is spoiled, or if something is goes wrong, right? Even there is a lot of patients are dying because of the food poisons. Sometimes the food get choked, sometimes the food becomes a poison. If it's not treated, that will go in a very different way. But restaurant, they are basically need to take a lot of controls about checking about the quality of the products and how they are basically is buying. They are also trying to see that how they are moving the product from one location to the another location. You would have been read in newspaper a few months ago where Zomato is basically took a order for one of the biryani order, and where that meat they have basically is bought it from some ex party. It was around more than 300 to 400 kgs of meat was spoiled before it basically comes to the kitchen to make a biryani, right? So they are basically there is a lot of noise, disturbances, external inquiries from food corporations. So legal litigations, there's a lot of challenges. So companies basically need to really think about that how they operate about the risk and mitigation tactics in a very different way. Walmart, its own trucking fleet, has numerous distribution centers located through a US, finds alternative origins and deliver routes by bypassing problems area. So they try to use a different kind of modes, like they use roadways, they use trucks, they use railways, they use seaways, right? They use robos, right? So there's a lot of way, right? Walmart is trying to bring a lot of different alternate modes, right, when they try to avoid the logistics delays and damages. So there's a lot of examples what you can see in the distributions. I just put it just for your understanding. Like Boeing, right, has a lot of challenges when it comes for information loss or distortions. They basically have a very good control about the effective communication system that transmits engineering, scheduling, and logistic data to Boeing facilities and suppliers across worldwide. Each and every company has their own risk, different kind of risk, how they are going to be overcome with it, and it basically has a lot of way to do it. For example, economic hedge, economic and risk tactics is there is a lot of way where uh, the cost is basically has a lot of fluctuations. But Honda and Nissan are moving more manufacturing out of Japan as exchange rate of N makes Japanese made autos more expensive. So some of the company they try to outsource the facilities to different countries for a different reason. For example, Caterpillar. Caterpillar has the factory in Trivallur, right? But uh, they have made it for a different purpose. It may be a low cost, it may be a good employer, or maybe a labor skills. There's a lot of different factors why company is trying to have the manufacturing units outside of the organization. So everywhere, right? The product security or basic product aspects, it matters a lot. So just in time is matters because they want to procure the product and then go for it, right? Think about if I have an excessive material, there's a possibility that the shipments get misrouted or stolen or damaged or excessively delayed, or the product becomes waste. So I need to see that when I'm going to make a product, I try to see that whether I require an actual inventory in hand, what is going to be make a product. Think about that. I have 100 mobile phone as an order from the customer. I need to ensure only the inventories which is 100 or maybe 110. I should not be keeping excess inventory, or that might be a risk for companies to sell that particular product at the lower cost in the year end. Next one is all about the bullwhip effect. I am not sure you read it or not. Bullwhip, it's just like a whip, right? Which is towards the bull. For example, if you're driving a bulldog like Matavandi, right? How do you control that particular bull, right? It is a you have a whip. The stick is not to beat the particular cow or maybe the bull or maybe the hawks. It's all about that controlling a different kind of factors like a speed and then stoppage, driving factors, controlling. There is a various way, right? How the bullwhip is basically used. So bullwhip in the effect is always talks about that how that orders is basically is relate, and how that particular factors is basically is going to be work for different organizations or different companies. Bullwhip is one of the very important strategies in the supply chain. The bullwhip effect is a supply chain phenomenon where orders is basically to suppliers tend to have a larger variability than the sales to buyers, which always results in an amplified demand variability to a upstream. So this concept has first appeared in J. Forrester Industrial Dynamics in 1961, and this is also sometimes known as Forrester effect. Okay, because the person was developed by J. Forrester. So in industry, we also call as Forrester efforts. So bullwhip is always go up or go less, where the order is excessive or order is basically is always shortages. Sometimes we have a large lots, reduce shipping costs, various factors where companies basically is trying to work on. The opportunities are accurately pull data from the customers and move the products currently, and then how the vendor manage inventory. This is one of the inventory controls, VMI. We basically have the EOQ, economics order quantity. There's a lot of stages, CPFR. These are the very big concepts, right? So which we cannot talk right now because these are the different kind of tools and techniques which we try to use in the supply chain industry to manage the integrate part. So how do you build a supply base? First one is hiring the right or onboarding the right suppliers from the market. The supplier need to have the right license, right skill set, right product, right education, right understanding about the market to fulfill to it. We basically have a model called SCORE, Supply Chain Operations References Model, and where we put this particular model to bring a lot of effectiveness about the suppliers, where we try to see what is the improvement which is required for our suppliers, how we can able to run the operations effectively without any challenges. So especially in supplier developments, we also go for a quality requirements, product specifications, schedules, trainings, information transfers, etc. Negotiation plays a very big role. Negotiation is one of the skill set. It has to come from the blood, right? I'm not talking about the bargaining, right? Negotiation is basically it's a strategy. So every companies basically have a team called negotiators. It is just like a discussion which people try to decide or agree to something. Okay, So negotiation is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties finds acceptable. Compromise is normally the basis of negotiation. Negotiation is always takes place between the buyers and sellers, or an employee and prospective employee, or the government, or two more countries. So negotiation is basically is all about the very formal discussions to reach an agreement with him, to fulfill to it. There is a lot of negotiation styles which organization follows to it, and we have a different valued skills like cost based price model, market based price model, competitive binding, right? There is a lot of things what they try to see to it. Finally is basically is all about the contracting and to work on. And every supply chain, the ethical factor, right? We are basically is now connecting to the topic, right? The role of ethics, uh, especially is in procurement. Ethics is basically is matters because we try to work with various suppliers. We try to give an opportunity to everyone, right? So we do go for an online auctions, e-auctions, bidding, tender. We need to be very inclusive, providing equal opportunity for everyone, and we select the suppliers based on a different factors: price, quality, availability, easy access, right? There is a lot of factors: compliance, right? Governance. There is a lot of factors which is inbuilt to it. Ethics is basically is one of the very key role to play, and how it basically go into advantage. So now I'm going to be I think we basically have only 10 minutes to go, and let me cover the ethics part, which is basically is very very important for you to understand. Ethics is basically is all about the role, right? I was talking about the personal ethics, right? How you should behave with the supplier, behave with your customers, right? And that create as a bridge. Think about that. You are basically you are the face for your college, you are the face for your industry, I'm the face for my organization. I should ensure that I behave in a very appropriate way with my suppliers, and ensures that all the transactions or happens within the company policy. There is a lot of agencies like Institute of Supply Chain Management Principles is available. They are basically promotes and uphold responsibility to employer, possibility suppliers, consumers, sustainability, and social responsibilities. There is a lot of way, right? How they basically is trying to build or trying to be work around it. So I think some of you might be having the understanding about the sustainability, right? So sustainable supply chain sustainability is an impact a company supply chain make in promoting human rights, fair labor practice, environmental progress, and anti-corruption policies. Okay, this is very important, right? Because there is a growing need for integrating sustainable choices into supply chain, whereas we are transforming every day to fulfill the customers. So there is supply chains or critical links that connect to an organization input that exactly brings output to deliver the product to our customers, right? So sustainable supply chain is basically is one of the very hot discussions, because it is one of the it is one that uses environmentally and social sustainable practices at every stage to protect the people and environment across the whole chain. So sustainability is basically is always has a three essential elements. One is called as social, number two is called as environmental, and then number three is called as a financial. So these three things is basically just good for business. It's not only good for business, it's good for the planet, right? So every company is basically has their own sustainability, because supply chain sustainability helps companies save money, strengthen business relationship, and benefit the environment. But to accomplish these goals to requires a science-based targets and basic business-based matrices. So you need to be very key on three things. We call it as three P. Three P means one is people, planet, and profit. People means a social equity bottom line. Planet means the environmental bottom line. The profit means the economic bottom line. So these are the three things which we should keep in mind Like for example, how much waste our suppliers or our delivery logistics are generating. Does our vendors manufacturing operations polluting the environment or not, or my product is impacting, or my product is harmful to people? What are the supply chain waters or energy use rate? Am I generating the green energy? Right. I've read in newspaper that one person has their own farm. Right. His goal was to have the plant for bulberries and apple, but he in turn put the lot of solar panel to generate the electricity, which is basically he's making a profit 500x of profits out of to it. So each and every time sustainability is matters, and a lot of banking sectors are focusing and providing a lot of opportunity to industries to bring sustainable based projects to add value to our global supply chains. Ethicals are perceived improperly, so you need to be ensure that you are very ethical. Unethical behaviors or lead to investigations, I think issues in relationship, communications, your role conflicts. Think about that. If my wife sits in my supplier company, I sit in my company, and we both interact and take some decisions, that's not nice. That's called as a conflict of interest, right? You need to ensure that any personal business or any other activity do not conflicts with law or interest of anything which is belong to the employer, right? For example, if I'm coming to this session, right, I should take a period approval from my company what I'm going to talk to you and obtain a license, right? It is not appropriate for me to just appear in front of you and talk like this. And also we need to think about the issue of influences, political influences, avoid behaviors influencing people to move on, right? So responsibilities is very important, and supply chain relationships are very impactful, and sustainability and social responsibility is very important. Champion and social responsibilities and sustainable practices in supply chain, it's very important, and we should really think about that, how to move on and how to work around it. Okay, so by this I think I've completed this particular discussions. What is basically is prepared for today. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now. Any questions? Students, any questions you have in mind? I know that this is very high level. When you come to organization only, you can able to understand the concepts, but these are the basics. Whatever I covered today are the basics concepts, so you should prepare yourself. I think especially for an engineering students, and this particular concepts will definitely help you to succeed in your career, and you also need to be choose the right career, right, by working in industries. So this 5 minutes is going to be a Q&A. So I will try to answer as much as possible. Uh, Karthik, do you have any questions from your students? I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any students can ask.
So if you don't have any questions, you can take my number from your professors, and you can contact me at any time on weekends. I'm glad to provide more clarity to you.
Sure, sir. We'll share to the students, sir. Already we have shared. We will do it, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I call upon Engineer V. Karthikeyan, Honorable Secretary, Ieihlc Local Center, to deliver vote of thanks.
I think so, some problem, I think so. Anyway, very happy, sir. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of our institution of engineers, also local centers, and on behalf of our college, Ariyaman College of Engineering, by spending your time, valuable time, and sharing all your valuable inputs to our college, sir, and to the also local centers, and on behalf of state center also, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Nandakumar.
Thank you, Mr. Nandakumar.
Thanks.
We look forward to many more such meetings. Have a happy day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Sir, participants can leave now.
Karthik?
Yes, sir. One more session. Our speaker, there is an emergency meeting, sir.
Okay.
So we are planned on tomorrow, sir.
Okay. Okay then. So all the participants, thank you very